Hi, everybody. Welcome to our fireside chat. If anybody wants to use this idea, $7 on Amazon, ships direct. Perfect, not a plug for Amazon, they don't need it. I'm Jonathan Keslow, Director of Tourism Sales at Epsilon.
And I'm Anna Strider, Director of Digital Strategy at Visit Lake Charles.
We wanted to first start by giving you all a fun fact about us. Break the ice. You've heard a lot of people talk already today. So my fun fact is I used to be on national radio. Now, you'll probably hear why I'm not on radio anymore throughout this conversation, but that's my fun fact.
And my fun fact is that I've only ever been to Las Vegas one other time, but when I was here, I went skydiving. So that's my fun fact.
A lot different than what we're about to talk about.
Exactly.
So let's kind of start about just you as a marketer. And as a marketer, how do you pick the KPIs and the goals for campaigns? How do you have the ability or understanding to pick from so many and then make that digestible, understandable for boards, for your directors, for everybody?
Well, I think the first part is that every time that we start with a new campaign or a new initiative, we ask ourselves why we're doing it and what the outcome is that we want to have. That really helps us choose what those KPIs are going to be, and we always choose a primary, really, and a secondary piece of that because there are those more minute pieces and then there's larger, broader ones that all go towards our overarching goals. So that's really where we start with choosing our KPIs.
So let's talk about kind of what I'm sure 10 years ago was the hot button issues, talking about impressions, clicks, site visits, the buzzwords. How have you and your organization embraced moving beyond impressions, moving beyond those clicks, and looked at more value-based metrics like visitation, ROI, the types of people, the qualified audiences you're driving to better not only your destination, but what you're putting out there for everybody else to see as well?
That's a great question. There's so many different pieces to that. As far as what are we doing to go beyond and think outside the box, the first piece is that we're educating our stakeholders. A lot of these nuances of different KPIs out there, they are requiring that we have to teach them that maybe the impressions and things that we were able to easily get in a quick turnaround time frame aren't what we're actually measuring the impact for, and that the impact takes longer. So that's a big piece of what we're doing, is educating our stakeholders in that facet. Another piece of that is that we're looking at our KPIs and economic development and economic impact numbers, and really looking at what is the campaign and what is the initiative that we're going to run with that tactic that's going to look at that visitation number or that ROI, or maybe even with CPMs, that if our goal is to get in front of a certain audience, that CPM might be higher, we might serve less impressions, but the economic impact of getting in front of that particular individual and audience is higher.
Can you kind of just touch on, when you have made those shifts, talking to your board members about those outcomes, how has that been perceived? I know talking to a lot of people here, it's still an uphill battle, but when you have tangible metrics that can say, not just a click is a click, but a click went to an individual. This individual went in, they came from X, Y, and Z, or they are the type of qualified audience that our DMO, our CVB wants to have.
Yes, we all work in the data or a piece of it every day. So when we're approaching our stakeholders, we have to really remember that this isn't necessarily their wheelhouse all the time and that they're not proficient in this. So taking it in small pieces and not giving them big drastic changes to what data we are reporting to them has been something that we've really been focused on. Another piece of things that we're doing with our stakeholders is looking at an initiative or something and bringing the most valuable piece to that. Instead of reporting everything that we did, all of the data points, and trying to educate them all at once, we really choose that one that made the impact in that particular time and bring that to them and educate them on that new piece. And so when we come to them in the future and we brought in something else, they already understand this new metric and how this was developed.
That's great. So the next aspect of this, and I think we've got enough time to go over this, and I know it's kind of fresh, hot off the presses. What strategies have worked for you, and what have you learned from them? And just to set you up, we were talking, those last couple of days about a campaign you ran, and not a plug for us, but what you mentioned that I thought was very impactful was you had 3 different types of data, 3 different types of vendors that you're working with, and each one was able to inform the next decision. Was that something that you were looking to do, or is this something that the strategy you implemented helped you get to now where you are?
Definitely. So Lake Charles, Louisiana, we're in the heel of the boot over there, and we have a very unique southern destination where we have multiple different casino properties, and we've traditionally had a great visitation with people to our destination, but they really know us for a few things. So last year, we really wanted to start incorporating new areas and attracting not only our visitors that know and love us and come regularly, but a new audience that knows us for something other than our casinos or our primary attractors, and bring them in. So that's really where we started looking at our geolocation data, our credit card spend data, of course our Google Analytics, and looking at what of our regional destinations and cities what they were engaging with, and trying to start targeting people and finding opportunity markets that we could continue to grow that audience by serving them new creative messaging. So that's was the foundation. We knew we wanted a new audience, and we knew we wanted it in areas outside of our traditional feeder markets. So when we were looking at some of these different platforms, we wanted to go back to really driving economic impact metrics back to our reporting afterward. And when we were looking at vendors, we already had an idea of what we wanted to promote. We wanted to lead with our food, our culture, and our events and festivals that we had coming up, which was something that we led differently than in our traditional marketing. So we went outside the box a little bit with that. And we looked at, again, vendors, and Epsilon was one of those that we chose. It was across multi-marketing, so we had different options: out-of-home, social, influencers. We had our earned media component to it, paid advertising. But on this one, we chose this because we wanted to see that spend back in market to really be able to influence what we were going to do in the future.
And can you touch on kind of, I know this, and now I'm going to tell everybody here, that you did have a new market you were looking in, and it wasn't a market that you were hoping and praying would perform. And by perform, there's a lot of ways we can all look at that. But what I found very interesting, what you said just today, was when you did talk about how you chose Austin as a market because of. Can you touch on that and what you learned from that first, initial look at that market, and then how those strategies came into fruition, and then, the overall, now you've got to go to your board and say, hey, look, this worked, and here's why it worked.
So with the Austin market, we had looked at all of those metrics and areas that we discussed beforehand, and we determined that we knew that they were interested in all these things based with what they engaged with. So when we ran the campaign, we ran it regionally. We didn't exclude anyone else. We just incorporated new markets and broke those different audiences up a little bit with our targeting of interest. But as far as geographically, we just included Austin. So when we ran the campaign with Epsilon, we get a report that's really based on that economic impact factor. So that told us afterward that the Austin market spent 75% of their actual visitation in our accommodations and our food, which was exactly what we were marketing to them with our food and culture. It wasn't our gas stations or our grocery stores or our retail, which is traditionally some of our other areas of high performance, but that wasn't what we wanted them to do. We wanted them to come and learn about our food scene, and that's exactly what this campaign showed that it did with a direct spend amount. And we've now taken that to launch a brand new campaign that you all will get to see in about 2 weeks when it comes out, but we're bringing that piece of it to the Austin market with the campaign activation.
And how, I guess I'm putting you on the spot here, we didn't go over this, but how do you feel you're going to be able to take that data, those understandings from all your vendors that were put up under saying we need to be in Austin and it needs to perform for us, and this is what it did. How are you going to take that and then digest that for your board and just any other stakeholders to express to them, we We might not have had 1,000 clicks, but we had X, Y, and Z. Take me through that.
So the big piece of that is that we all know what the primary goal here is. We want more people from Austin in our destination for longer spending their money. So that's where we're going. But each of these different initiatives, we have the social media, the earned media, we have the actual event portion of it, and then all of the advertising that comes with it. So those we've broken out to each have their own specific goal and primary KPI of how we're going to say that this component went back to directly influencing that overarching goal and bringing people in. So it's really been a breakdown of all of the different aspects that go into a campaign or entering a new market, and then how we're going to show that. And we are setting that up ahead of time, knowing what those KPIs are going to be.
Awesome. Okay, one last question. So for you and for your destination, what would you say is valuable for your marketing piece? You won an award with your last campaign. Mm-hmm. We're hoping that the next one wins an award as well. You know, you touched on the new creative, that data informing those creatives, and then the results. What is that the importance to you, is making sure all those pieces come out into a masterpiece in the end, that this is what it is? What's that value for you and you as a marketer?
For us, again, we're driven by the economic impact. That's where we want our primary goal is to continue to increase that. So I think really the all-encompassing piece of that question really is that we, of course, do want to win another award. And the campaign that we won with was our Austin one, preliminary to what we decided to do. But showing the impact and communicating that back to our stakeholders, and not only our board, but our restaurateurs, our attractions, our hoteliers, our casino resorts, and showing what we're doing, how it's driving. That's ultimately the important piece, and that all of these different components and setting up those KPIs ahead of time allow us to be able to speak to them in a language that they can understand without bogging them down with too much data.
Awesome. Well, last question. I lied. I have another one. What was more impactful for you? Was it your skydiving or this session right now?
Oh, definitely this session.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about it for the rest of my life.
All right. Well, that's all we have. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it.